When Democrat overlords are cocky and comfortable enough to flat out tell you freedom of speech is standing in their way, well, you know it's bad.
If people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence. So what we need is to win the ground, win the right to govern by hopefully having, winning enough votes that you're free to be able to implement change.
But my friends, it is not just John Kerry saying these things. Welcome your Democrat ticket for the White House.
We will hold social media platforms accountable for the hate infiltrating their platforms because they have a responsibility to help fight against this threat to our democracy. And if you profit off of hate, if you act as a megaphone for misinformation or cyber warfare, if you don't police your platforms, we are going to hold you accountable as a community.
I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
Do you think it's any coincidence they kicked Trump off of social media? Do you think it's any coincidence they censored content that pushed back against their almighty COVID narrative? And Elon Musk and X are right in their bullseye now, and they don't really care if you, the American people, suffer because of it. Take what's happening in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene as we speak. Kamala's rural broadband program cost $42 billion and failed to connect a single household. She has nothing to show for it. Meanwhile, in hurricane-devastated North Carolina, desperate citizens are using Elon Musk's Starlink to connect with loved ones. The more inefficient and ineffective the government proves to be, the more it targets efficient and effective competition. So free speech, innovation, original thought, all in their crosshairs. Joining me now to discuss that and so much more on the list today is radio host and my friend Tommy Sotomayor. Tommy, great to have you.
Thanks for having me here.
Tommy, before we get started with our other topics today, I know that you are in Atlanta, Georgia, maybe not hit as hard in Atlanta as other places in Georgia and East Tennessee and Asheville, North Carolina, but I do have to ask you what you think of the government response so far. We know Joe Biden put on a little press conference earlier today. He was hacking and wheezing his way through it. I appreciate the fact that he actually did a press conference, but I feel like a lot of people in the South right now feel like the government is a little MIA. Can you just tell me from your perspective what it's like to be in Georgia?
The hardest hit area right now is southern Georgia around the Valdosta area, which is where Trump is going to find himself today, which is awesome because people in Georgia, maybe not as bad as North Carolina, as you guys have shown, and down in Florida, but it's still bad here. It actually hit my home, and my deck fell off of our backyard because of the water weight and the water that came, the pool and all rose, and we had water in the basement. But people are in bad shape all over the Southeast region. And I don't think FEMA is doing a very good job, especially when people like Donald Trump, who at this point is a private citizen, is coming out and helping the people out here who are really in need. Without electricity, the numbers are staggering where people need electricity. We have to worry about the standing water that's around because you're dealing with the mosquitoes and all of the diseases that come along with things like that. And even in places where they could possibly turn the electricity on, you have to worry about if you turn it on, what could happen if some people get electrocuted. So it's really worse than people think about around the United States. And here in Georgia, we got, I would say, the lighter end of it, but it's still pretty bad.
Yeah, and our hearts go out to all those folks. There's still so many who are not even able to communicate with loved ones, a lot of unknown and missing folks out there. It's always hard. You point the finger at the government when the government doesn't perform, and it's a difficult situation. I don't want to completely put this on the Biden administration, but when I see him over the weekend, once again, kind of mumbling, stumbling, fumbling. It's like, get out there, talk to the American people. You've got Kamala, who's the vice president. She's raising money in San Francisco, supposedly going to be back today taking FEMA calls. But when you're raising, tens of millions of dollars in San Francisco, it just doesn't look right. And for her running for president, you think she could do a little bit more. But, Kamala's not one to do more than she has to. In fact, she does the bare minimum and sometimes less than that. But I want to get into, obviously, some of the news from over the weekend, and I got to get your thoughts on a lot of this. Now, we know the state of the race. We're getting very close to Election Day, and Donald Trump commenting on Kamala Harris's intelligence. Now, Tommy, on the outset, I was like, listen, calling her dumb might not be the best course of action. It's just not always great optics to call a woman dumb anyway. But Donald Trump doesn't seem to care about any of that. Let's roll the clip from this weekend that has the left really fired up.
Joe Biden became mentally impaired. Kamala was born that way.
All right, Tommy, good, bad, indifferent on him talking about Kamala being, quote, mentally impaired.
I would be the wrong one to ask because I step in it a lot. I say what I feel, and sometimes jokes help alleviate a lot of the tension that's going on. Because the truth is, you got a lot of people out here who can't pay their bills, who can't feed people. So when you hear something like this, you're not really thinking, oh, that's horrible. That's worse than my situation. It's a good joke. And if you ask me, it was a funny joke. And it's a part of what politics could be if it was done correctly. Because this is a man who's been shot at twice. And maybe if they wanted to take something seriously, maybe they could take that seriously. Assassination attempts on a American citizen running for political office shouldn't be tolerated. Not calling a woman dumb, that's bad optics. How about the fact that she sounds like she's a lush? At best, when she's talking, she sounds like she's quite drunk or ready to get drunk. And then if you've ever seen Talladega Nights, the guy who owned the racing team, she sounds just like his wife, and she was uncontrollable as well. Our politics have gone downhill because we can't call out what we see, and we're supposed to feel good. So no, I like the fact that he's trying to make them feel uncomfortable. That's what should happen.
I guess I don't really take as much offense to him calling Kamala, maybe mentally challenged or impaired. When you listen to her talk, it feels like there's something she's not able to articulate well. I guess for me, I feel like that might be a dig at people who are truly mentally challenged and impaired. So that's the only thing for me. It's like, don't lump her in with people that actually face mental challenges. We love those folks, and we know that they're great citizens and great Americans. So that, I guess that would be my only thing, is that, again, that feeds into him, maybe poking fun or picking on people who are truly facing mental challenges. But, in terms of calling Kamala names, our very own Outkick's Clay Travis had a chance to meet up with Donald Trump at the big Georgia-Alabama game over the weekend, and he doubled down on his assessment of Kamala's intelligence, even when talking about young voters. Let's take a listen to this one.
Today we had kids, Alabama, Georgia. We gave them a Kamala hat and a Trump hat like they do when they decide when they're recruits. Everybody we asked was putting on the Trump hat. I think you're going to kill it with young kids, college kids, in a way that you haven't before. Do you feel that momentum?
Well, we see it, and we see where we're way up with young people and generally Republicans, including me. And the last time I was okay, but I wasn't great. We're up by like 30 points with the young people. So that's an honor. Look, they see what happens. They're very smart. And look at the way she berated them. She said they're not smart. They're much smarter than her, I'll be honest. But I think we're going to do really well.
Young people are much smarter than Kamala, according to Donald Trump. I mean, I don't really take any issue with that. But let's talk about just the optics of him being at that game. We know that Tim Walz also attended a game. There's reports that he got booed. Donald Trump, I think with that kind of a crowd, does very well. Same thing with a UFC crowd. I think it's strategically really smart for him to show up at events like this because he fits in. It's not an act. It's not a part that he's playing. I think he needs to do more of it. What do you think?
I'm in 100% agreement. And you see the ads that they put out where they're trying to say that he's born with a silver spoon in his mouth and he can't relate to the people. But what's strange is throughout my lifetime, all I've seen is this millionaire/billionaire being able to relate to the people. All the people were able to relate to him. I'm a hip hop head. Donald Trump's name was mentioned more than anybody's name, including Tupac. That is an amazing thing for the regular people to see this man as what he is, a man of the people. I mean, Mark Cuban is a billionaire himself. But if you look at his background, where he came from more humble beginnings than Kamala Harris. Miss, I worked at McDonald's, but no one knows where this McDonald's location is. And the McDonald's hasn't come out and said, this is who I am. If you look at Donald Trump and you look at Kamala Harris, me as a black man, I remember black people got upset about the Cosby Show, which is sad. But they got upset about it because they said, that's not realistic. You have a mom that's a lawyer and a dad that's a doctor. So they started giving us bad program, which was hood parents. Well, if you look at Kamala Harris, she had two parents that had PhDs. How many black people have that? And yet they claim that they have that in common with them, that we are in lockstep with Kamala Harris. Well, I think that a lot more people are in lockstep with Donald Trump. He says things that he feels. He says things that he means. He says it off the cuff. Most of our grandmothers and grandfathers spoke just like that. And we understood that they were being honest with us, but they cared. And if you look at Donald Trump, when you see him at these UFC events, when you see him at these games, it actually appears like he cares, unlike the fake coach who was the not even an assistant coach, but an honorary coach. And now all of a sudden being a coach is a good thing on the left when all we've heard is toxic masculinity over the past 10 years. I think we can understand authentism when we see it, and we see it in Donald Trump.
You brought up two things that I want to talk about, but first, Kamala, she's got a lot of accents. We saw the Hispanic accent last week that she busted out, but she really enjoys doing a black accent. And she is, half black, so if she were to have a black speaking voice or something that sounded like a black person's voice, I wouldn't think anything wrong with that, other than the fact that she doesn't have it all the time. It's just selective when she's talking to certain people. Well, she busted that one out again, kind of similar to the McDonald's story. Now we've got a new story about Kamala. Let's take a listen to this one.
An incredible family and incredible friends. My best friend from kindergarten is still one of my best friends.
That's crazy.
Right? Stacey Johnson.
Yeah, that's dope. I love it.
We used to go to the clubs and her father Seville.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't help but laugh. I also laugh because she laughs at herself, which not many people can do. She does it. It's almost like she's in on her own joke. But what is it, Tommy, with every time she talks to a black person, she's got to speak differently? I don't come on to a podcast with you and all of a sudden I have a new accent like I'm a Real Housewife of Atlanta. But Kamala is able to do that. And to me, it makes her even more phony than she already is.
Well, first I'll shout out to the people like me who can laugh at themselves. I say I entertain myself all the time. So I'm one of those people who can do it. But you look at Stephen Jackson, you can see Stephen Jackson felt like she was pandering as he put his head down almost in shame. And it was almost simultaneously as I was putting my head down as I heard her do it. I know Donald Trump can't say it, and I know that you can't say it, but I'm going to say it. She's not half black. If her mother is Indian and her father claims he's a third Irish and a third Indian and a third black, I'm not very good at math. But I don't think that makes her half. And if she didn't grow up around those people and with those people, where would this accent come from? Did her stint in Seattle or her stint in Northern California or her stint in Canada? Where was these black folks that she was bathing with the collard greens while cleaning them? Where were these black people? My sorors. It is pandering and it is actually insulting. Sometimes people describe it. I've heard of people like Joy call it code switching, and that blacks have to learn how to code switch in order to fit in. But again, this woman is the same color. And as a matter of fact, she's lighter than Trump. And I don't understand how the truth doesn't come out, that even her father, who is supposedly her connection to black, has no connection to her. They don't even call him black. They call him Jamaican, as if no Jamaicans are anything but black. He found her comments inflammatory when she spoke about, of course she's Jamaican because she smokes weed. The things that she says and does, she seems like a pick me, a fit in. I need to fit in. If you watch almost every interview she does, if she's talking to a trans person, she's all in for trans. If she's talking to a gay person, she's all in for gays. Whoever she's around, which is why I think they're protecting her and trying to put her in positions to where she's more scripted, because she is a go along to get along kind of person. She will say whatever the person in front of her tells her is the correct thing to say.
I've also noticed that she has this tell, in my opinion, not even just the laugh, that's the most obvious, but when she doesn't quite know what to say, she starts with a big word and then she uses that word as many times as she can in the span of about 30 seconds. So last week in that MSNBC interview, it was holistic, and we got the holistic way that we approach things holistically in the whole. She picks a word and then she repeats that word over and over again because she thinks that people will be so mesmerized by her ability to say a big word that they won't focus on the fact that she has absolutely no idea what she's talking about. But, you know, you brought up toxic masculinity. Now, we know that Doug Emhoff, as the second gentleman, you know, he made it his mission to combat toxic masculinity. And now he's sitting down and he's being asked about reshaping masculinity, as if it really needs to be reshaped by him, the man who had an affair with his nanny. But let's take a listen to his reshaping of masculinity.
There's also been an important part, or an interesting part of how people have talked about your role here, is how your role has reshaped the perception of masculinity. And I'm not sure you planned on that, but you are an incredibly supportive spouse. Has that been an evolution for you? And do you think that's part of the role you might play as first gentleman?
It's funny, I've started to think a lot about this. I've always been like this. My dad was like this. And to me, it's the right thing to do, you know, support women. It's mutual, like with Kamal and I, we support each other, we have each other's back.
Tommy, there's nothing wrong with supporting your wife, and she's in an important position. But this whole concept of that, you know, he's reshaping masculinity and Tim Walz is reshaping masculinity. I mean, if they're trying to get the male vote, I'm not so sure it's working.
It's not working with me at all. I do not relate to this man. I do not relate. And again, they spend all this time calling men toxic because you never heard the phrase toxic femininity. Only masculinity can be toxic. And now you're reaching out to us again, pandering. And when I say us, all men aren't the same, of course. We don't subscribe to the same way of acting, the same way of treating our wives or girlfriends or whoever you're with or whatever you do. Some men are okay being the second gentleman or the first gentleman or whatever kind of gentleman there is. Some men want to go and be a coach. Some men want to fix a car. But they seem to not know men personally. They seem to know men as an idea. And so they're reaching out to what the idea or their thought of them are. You know, kind of like what they're doing to Black people, kind of like what they're doing to Latinos, kind of like what they're doing to everyone. They see you as a stereotype, and yet everybody else is supposed to be the ones that are problematic with stereotyping them. They stereotype men, they boil you down to something, and that thing they boiled you down to, now they're trying to pander to that. It is ugly to watch this guy because he doesn't represent any guy that I know, Mr. I'm going to sleep with my nanny because I support women. We want to bring up everybody else's past, but we don't bring up his past. Remember how they said that Donald Trump had the morals of an alley cat? Well, what about this? What about him? Why don't we bring up his? But that's what the left will do, and that's what the left media does. So this guy gets to reshape masculinity when nothing about him appears to be masculine at all. And as a matter of fact, that was one of the great things that they were pushing. Mr. Emhoff, maybe you could take Mrs. Harris and turn her into Miss Emhoff. But since you can't, maybe that's what new age masculinity is.
Yeah, to me, this whole nanny story, like, I don't personally care that much about the personal lives of people. That's not what I'm going to make my decision on. But it's just amazing to me because to this day, they go after Melania and they talk about her modeling and they shame her, and she's got a memoir out and they shame her and they make fun of her accent. And I mean, this woman almost lost her husband to an assassination attempt, and they even make fun of that with Melania. But yet we're supposed to revere Doug Emhoff. We're supposed to worship Michelle Obama. It's just amazing to me that they can say that they support women, or, that they're such dignified and moral people. But on the other side of the token here, they really don't care about the Trump family. And I think that that's become quite obvious. But I don't know if voters really care. How much do you think it's going to matter? The way that they speak about Trump, the way that they speak about Kamala, does any of this matter to people who still haven't made up their minds?
I think it won't. And let me tell you why. First off, I think people see the hypocrisy of the left, and I don't know why people don't bring this up. Everybody's offended that Donald Trump in locker room talk said, grab him by the hoo-ha. That's messed up, right? So why did Miss Harris sit down with a man by the name of Luther Campbell? You might know him, but you're young, but you might know him as Luke Skywalker. He was the front of a group by the name of Two Live Crew. Two Live Crews had some of the most disgusting, disturbing lyrics of all times about women. And she sat down, Miss Harris, for a long-form interview with him. So if you're going to bring up what Donald Trump said, why wouldn't you bring up what Luke said? Why wouldn't you bring up what Snoop said? Or any of these rappers or leftists that they are having come out for the black vote? You had a girl that was opened up her show that had a song called WAP. And you all can figure out what the letters mean. But Donald Trump is the bad guy. I think everybody sees the hypocrisy, and most of the undecided voters, which I don't even know if there's many out there, because I'm going to tell you, I believe that he's going to run away with this election. Because I think that a lot of people realize they cannot come out and tell the truth, because that's what the left is doing. And that's what you were showing earlier when you were talking about how they're going to treat social media as, we'll shut you down if you don't say what we want you to say. You'll lose your job. And I love what Zachary Levy said. He was committing career suicide just by standing up for Donald Trump and Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard. It is sad that he has to feel that way, that if he doesn't go along with one side, then his whole career is ruined. And I think that's what a lot of people are seeing. So the undecided voters that you think are there, I think they've already decided. And they realize that the gas prices, the home prices, the availability of jobs, the availability of homes, the availability of the American dream and freedom, and the fact that you have a wide open border, I think that matters more than a guy who sends mean tweets or says women are dumb, because how dare he say that in a world where women can call men whatever they want and men have to take it. I think America wants their America back.
It's crazy to me that they try to characterize that, what Donald Trump says about Kamala, that it's sexist or racist. Donald Trump says these things about everybody. There is literally nobody left off the table with Donald Trump. It's not as if he only talks about a certain group of people a certain way. He talks about everybody that way, including people in his own party. But speaking of racism, you and I have talked about the WNBA before, and Caitlin Clark, I think it was about a week ago that she got speared with some fingernails. But, they're never going to leave this poor woman alone, I don't think. But now you've got Brittney Griner, who should quite frankly just be happy that her ass is in America. But now she is saying, and this clip to me is so wild, she's saying that she's just getting tired of the racial slurs being hurled at WNBA games. Let's take a listen to her story on this one.
I appreciate the new fans that sit there and yell racial slurs at myself, my teammates, and the people that I play against, because yeah, those might be opponents, but those are friends too. They don't deserve that. So I don't appreciate the new fans that think it's okay to do that.
What person, Tommy, in 2024, with cancel culture at its height, would ever dare to yell a slur at a WNBA game or anywhere where cameras might be present? I mean, even if you are a racist and you're an awful person and you feel those things, I can't imagine anybody being brazen enough to actually do it and it not magically being caught on camera. What do you think of her assessment there?
Listen, I don't know what this guy's talking about, but let me tell you, this man says a lot of things that I don't agree with, and I don't understand why this man is playing in the WNBA. I mean, he does say that he's a man, right? I mean, he's went through all of the surgeries to make sure that he's a man, but won't cross over and go play in the NBA, sir. I don't know why he's not doing it, but let me explain this part. Of course, it would have been caught on camera because there are cameras everywhere. And if the left is trying to tell you something happened and they can't show it to you, it's called a lie. That's exactly what it is. This is a lie being told and perpetrated by a group of people who couldn't bring their own fans themselves. Let me tell you about a person or people who've been through something like that. Jackie Robinson. How about Irving Magic Johnson. They've been through things that were horrible, and they lived to talk about it. But you know what they didn't do? Cry like these people did, and the world is better for it. What they did was go out and show that they are different than what the people in the audience or the crowd were thinking. These women cannot be proud of the fact that they have a woman that's bringing them views and audiences that they've never had before. And it is sad. And as a matter of fact, it is sickening, in my opinion, that they are turning against Caitlyn. But I don't know if you've seen it, but what's worse than that is how Caitlyn is allowing it to happen. She is trying to now fill in the blanks by being as left as possible, making sure she retweets Taylor Swift because she's trying to go along to get along to fit in. And I don't think that no matter what it is she does, I don't think they will ever see her as equal. They will always see her as the problem, even though she's bringing them money and attention that they never would have gotten on their own.
Well, Tommy, you're right, as usual. And I think that unless she fully bends over backwards, they're never going to truly leave her alone. The last thing I do want to ask you about, because we talked about this before, and now, I mean, not only do you've got Diddy, but now you got Mayor Eric Adams. But I want to get your take on the Diddy thing, because you and I talked about it before when the allegations were out. Now you've got an actual arrest. And the things that are coming out about this Diddy situation, I mean, they're pretty bad. But I'm of the opinion that just like Epstein, we're never really going to know the real story, because I think that there are people probably implicated in everything with Diddy that are probably higher up in the world than Diddy is even. So I don't think we're ever going to get the truth. I think they're going to cover this thing all up. Maybe Diddy will be the fall guy. But how do you think this shakes out?
Mm-hmm. Listen, I figured if it was me, I'm telling on everybody. So nobody will ever do anything crazy with me or out of line, because they know I'm a tell. So therefore, they don't invite me to Diddy's party or anything like that. But I will say that the people who were there, and all the people, you got to look at how many times Obama, Eric Adams, how many times Oprah, and all of these said that this was a great guy, how this was something that was known. The parties with Diddy was known, and yet nothing happened. Why is it now something's happening? This is going to be a lot bigger than surface level, and either he's going to be Epstein, which means he's going to come up missing, or it's going to all go away, because there's too many tentacles here, and he's attached to too many people with too much to lose. I don't think this is going to go the way that you think, that a lot of people think it is, that he's going to have this big trial and, oh my God, all this stuff is going to come out. No, it's going to be swept under the rug, or he's going to be swept under it.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it. Tommy, thank you so much for taking the time today. As always, we appreciate the cold, hard truth, and I hope to have you back soon. God bless your state of Georgia and everybody there, and your new renovation on your deck, which is now apparently fallen off. I know it's got to be a hard time for everybody, so I appreciate you spending the time with me today.
Yeah, thank you. I had a horrible time with my mom. She had said something. I was telling her what was going on. I texted her. I said my deck had fallen off, and she said, "That's why you need to get one woman and settle down." I said my deck, ma'am.
Hey, your mom, it sounds like I know where you get some of your humor from, so I love it, and that's a great way to end end our segment today. Tommy, thank you so much. God bless. Folks, the cold, hard numbers are in, and congratulations, America. Hundreds of thousands of convicted criminal aliens are roaming our country. It's time for final thoughts. So the biggest news of not just the week, not just the month, but the whole frickin' year should be the shocking numbers dropped by ICE last week. Over 13,000 criminal illegal aliens convicted of homicide roaming our country. Over 15,000 convicted of sexual assault roaming our country. Over 400,000 convicted criminals and over 200,000 with pending criminal charges roaming our country. In total, according to ICE, 7 million illegals on their docket for removal are roaming our friggin' country. Of course, the Biden-Harris administration claims that those numbers are over multiple administrations. Well, Fox News reached out and asked for a breakdown of how many are from the current administration and how many are from other administrations. And, shocker, the Biden-Harris administration has not provided that breakdown yet. Not going to hold my breath. But I don't care how liberal you are. I don't care how loving and tolerant you are. I don't care if you think most of the 10 million plus Joe and Kamala let in are good people. You cannot, in your right mind or even in your far left mind, think this is in any way, shape, or form acceptable. Because that would mean that you hate Donald Trump more than you love your own family, your own community, your own well-being, and certainly your own country. The world is literally emptying its prisons into our country. We are a dumping ground for the world. And Kamala going to the border 2 months before Election Day in a reported $62,000 Tiffany necklace, pretending to be a tough ass, isn't going to change that. And here's another harsh reality, a Democrat dirty secret, a smokescreen that needs to be torn down. Yes, border crossings have gone down since Joe issued his magical executive order a few months ago. No duh. We have an election coming up. The Democrats are not stupid. Of course, they were going to do something to make it appear like they're taking the border seriously, but it's all a front because they are still flying tens of thousands of migrants directly into our country per month. They are still allowing migrants to use the CBP app to make a damn reservation to gain entry into this country like it's a frickin' Olive Garden. And here's another point that I need to make. This Democrat administration got 10 million plus into this country in 3.5 years. They accomplished the first phase of their goal. Amnesty and voting rights are next. 10 million plus let in. Millions will have babies here. The Democrats did exactly what they planned to do, but they want you to applaud because border crossings have been down for the last few months. Like, we should be grateful for that. There is only one thing that would stand in the way of creating a Democrat firewall voting bloc that would prop up their power for the foreseeable, well, forever, and that's Donald Trump. But Trump also needs to get majorities in both houses of Congress so we can stop any legislation or any inkling of a bill to provide amnesty and voting rights to illegals. Trump also needs to carry out a mass deportation operation, and too bad if it looks bad, because what comes in must go out. They should have never been allowed in that way in the first place. Trump also needs to defund sanctuary cities immediately. There is no reason these rogue liberal cities and even states should be providing safe haven and comfort to criminal aliens. But first thing is first, Trump needs to get reelected. So call upon your brothers, your sisters, your moms, your dads, your aunts, your uncles, everyone you know, and make sure they plan to vote. No patriot can sit this election out. The stakes are far too high. And those are my final thoughts. Please be sure to tune in tomorrow live at 1 p.m. Eastern. Also catch full episodes of this show on Fox Nation whenever you want. Please support us, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. From Nashville, God bless and take care. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.